Welcome back to your World Cup wrap-up, brought to you by the Maximum Cricket Podcast. And holy shit, we've had a week. Shakib went to war and timed out Angelo Mathews. Glenn Maxwell couldn't move, yet played the greatest innings in one-day cricket. England won a game of cricket. And Boult and Southee blitzed Sri Lanka to all but secure a semi-final berth and send shivers and nightmares to our Indian friends.
Oh, that is brilliant. It's a hero maximum. On the ground, down the ground, another hero maximum.
My name is Munter, and I am joined by Lugsy today. And as we know, Angelo Mathews, the first timed out dismissal in international cricket. Have you ever heard of it or seen it happen at the club level?
No, I have not heard of it at the club level. I've obviously heard of the dismissal. Yes, it was very famous as when we were young, especially if you get a guy on a hat trick, you run like, time him out. But I mean, that's about where the conversation normally stops.
It's funny you mention that, because I've actually heard of it happening at the club level. I don't know if it's just a story of folklore, but I have heard, and I don't know if it's just dramatized as well, but it was against Green Island, apparently.
Love that.
I heard maybe that started their run, I guess, maybe. But apparently it was a hat trick, and then the fourth wicket was timed out, and that was out the gate. So I don't know if it happened, but when I first started playing senior men's cricket, I was told our opening bowler had done that in the past. Maybe it was a scare tactic, maybe not. But let me know who's competitive as fuck.
As I say, I think generally it's one of those things you make a wee joke about, and then you sort of call the heads prevail and you move on. And this was especially, I think, a disgraceful case. I mean, let's not go into the words of him in this climate saying he thinks he's at war. I mean, that's just, you can't be saying that currently, maybe ever. You're just playing a game of cricket, mate. But yeah, I just like Angelo Mathews, I think, a bit silly maybe or whatever, bit of an oversight, whatever. But I think at a maximum you say, hey, come on, let's speed this along, blah, blah, blah. You just don't go the whole way, do you? That's outrageous to me.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, because if you set the scene, so obviously like the rules are you've got 2 minutes from when there's a wicket fall to face up, to be ready to face your first ball. And by all accounts, I watched it and I timed it just to be sure. He was ready to face with 2 minutes to go. He was there, ready to go, about to take guard, and then he tries to pull, tighten his strap, it snaps. And then I think his biggest error was that he didn't realise that Shakib's a big fuckwit.
That's huge.
And he was like, he just sort of wanders off and doesn't really think much of it. And to be fair, I don't know if I would either. Probably wouldn't have thought.
Nah.
And I thought there's this funny slash, I guess, angry moment where you can tell when Mathews has been told that they're appealing for a timed out, because he kind of laughs. He half laughs. And then his face immediately changes to when he realizes that they're serious, and he just snaps. And now the ironic thing is the timed out thing is to speed the game of play, but this whole thing took about 10, 15 minutes. Which sort of did the adverse effect. I'm trying to think of if a guy, like, I'm not opposed to timing out. Like, if a guy's, the rule's there for a play. The rule's there for a reason. If a guy's mucking around,
I would say the only time it could be I would allow it is, say, we're getting to the end of a day, it's tight, and a guy's just taking the piss, trying to waste time, to save a draw or something. And he's really taking the piss, and I'd say, right, screw this guy. But when you're not trying to gain any sort of advantage, and it's just an oversight, I mean, to actually go through with that for the sake of a bloody 7th or 8th game of cricket, or 9th or 10th or whatever, it's just outrageous to me.
Yeah, it's just it's tough to argue against it. Okay, my next question is Shakib the number one villain in cricket right now? As you sort of mentioned, his explanation was that he felt like he was at war, and he did what he had to do for my team and win. Obviously, there's an actual general war in Gaza. Like there are tens of thousands of people like dying in a war. This is just a game of cricket. Like calm the fuck down. And secondly, on that note, you say you'd want to do anything to win. Bangladesh don't do a lot of winning. You do lose a lot for a team that talks about how you do anything to win.
Yeah, I hate that sort of cop out as well. Do anything to win, like. I mean, yeah. As you said, they're not winning a lot. I mean, you don't have to do anything to win. Just train a bit more. Just get better at cricket for starters. Yeah. I mean, for the time being, he's certainly going to be enemy number one, isn't he? The reaction over this side of the globe will probably blow over pretty quickly. If it was, say, an Australian doing that, I mean, we're talking 9 to 12 years of hatred, I'd imagine. Sort of these.
We're still talking about a stumping.
Oh yeah, it's yeah. So it may not be as huge a deal over here, but yeah, for the time being, certainly in the bad books.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. That's fair enough. We're definitely anti it. Anything else you want to touch on the timed out? The game is a bit of a non-event.
I was going to say, if we're just touching on the game quickly, I guess just a disappointing World Cup really for Sri Lanka in the end. I think it filled with a little bit of promise there at the start with how they performed in the Asia Cup, and sort of to limp out now with obviously the back-to-back losses and pretty poor performances. I think, yeah, pretty disappointing World Cup in the end.
Yeah. Well said. I've got nothing more to add. So from those sort of lows, let's move on to the greatest innings of all time, Lugsy. We penciled in
Pat Cummins,
Yeah.
Can play.
Yeah. We penciled in this Afghanistan game as a potential banana skin game for Australia, and it very, very nearly became that as Afghanistan dominated 3/4 of that game. They batted first. They picked 4 spinners. They made their highest score of the World Cup so far, 291 for 5. Ibrahim Zadran made 129 not off 143 balls. The first Afghanistan 100 at the World Cup. Everything was just going great. It got even better. Australia 91 for 7. As I said, they picked 4 spinners. Potentially a mistake in hindsight, as the 2 seamers they did have had that ball absolutely moving. I don't think I've seen the ball moving from any side like that in the World Cup. Naveen and Omazai picked up 2 wickets each. Marnus was run out. Then Rashid Khan picked up 2. Suddenly, Australia 91 for 7. This is where the Maxwell magic happens. Cummins. Let me just rattle off some stuff. Maxwell and Cummins, they put on an undefeated 202 for the 8th wicket. Pat Cummins 12 not out off 68 balls. Very impressive knock, just a smart knock. Maxwell obviously 201 not out off just 128 balls. The first 200 by a male Australian, the first 200 chasing, the first 200 batting below, not opening the batting, and he's batting at 6. I think alone that makes that the greatest one-day innings ever. But this is where it goes up another notch. Maxwell, he's on 120, 130, still 80-odd runs to get off 80-odd balls. And then Maxwell cramps up so bad to the point where he hobbles for a single in the 140s. His full body goes into shock. He cramps up, he hits the deck. From there, him and Cummins, they decide they won't run. They can't run. So no 2s, no singles, no nothing. 6s and 4s, and maybe the odd hobble. So if Maxwell's on strike, he doesn't get to the other end. And if Cummins is on strike, he just stays on strike. That's it. So to the point where like Cummins has to play out a maiden in the 43rd over. Like it's just like a nice wee tidbit there. Like Maxwell couldn't use his feet to hit the ball. Like he's standing there swinging from the bat, just swinging freely, but he cannot, like it's just, the degree of difficulty is unmatched. anchored to the ground. He uses eyes, claws, reverse sweeps, swats down the ground, leg side. It's got to be, just in terms of physically, the hardest innings anyone's ever played. Just like, I don't think anyone in the history of cricket could ever play that innings again. Like, only one person could do that, Glenn Maxwell. A few days removed, Lugsy. How do you remember that innings?
If I could just pivot, sort of zag.
Yeah.
A bit village. Just a bit village, some of that. Just being Maxi without a hat on, like without any sort of headwear and unable to run. I was just like, what's going on here? But no, in seriousness, yeah, just the most, like, I mean, I've said a couple of times before, like, it's getting hard to be shocked by batting, because the hitting is just so outrageous these days. But then it just keeps going up a level. And that may be as good as we ever see, who knows? But given the circumstances, I mean, there can't be anything better. There may not be anything better again. It's hard to think of a team in that position, having someone who can do that, facing all the adversity of the situation with the cramp. Cummins playing his role like that. And so, I mean, the drop catch, we didn't even mention the drop catch. I mean, we've all done it. We've all dropped someone on 30 and he goes on to get 60. Not many of us have dropped a guy on bloody 20 and he goes on to get 200 and bury us. I mean,
what about Majib was the one that bowled the last over as well that goes for 24. So it's just never got his chance to come back.
That's really, honestly, I think every cricketer around the world would feel his pain. I mean, that's as brutal as it gets. Just watching the game last night, and the commentators were talking about how they were all having a drink post the Aussie game, which, just as a wee tidbit, is one of my favourite things in the world. Just hear commentators talking about how they all get together post game, have a meal, just makes the job sound so fun. But anyway, Maxi must have walked in and they just said, just standing ovation. And I was thought, how cool would it be to be Maxi there? Literally a room full of the legends of this game, and they are just on their pins for you. Apparently he was still quite pale, looking a bit sheepish, and I just thought that's just a memory he will just have forever now. What a performance.
Well, you touched on something with the commentators, and there's some big names in that commentary box, and just the way they were talking about their innings, like, you just felt like they knew that it was something special. Like, you know, someone like Ricky Ponting has seen everything there is in the game. He has seen, he is one of the best players ever. Nothing sort of shocks him, but just the way that he couldn't believe what was happening. And I thought they just nailed it. Like the combo, like Smithy on the comms, he knows how to sensationalize a moment like this. I honestly would love to get him on, and just, how does he come up with these liners? Like, he shouldn't walk off. He should be carried off. Like, too bloody right. Like, that was just, I mean, it's just one of those innings I'll never forget. But
yeah, I love, because you do get these situations like with these, when a smaller nation sort of plays a bigger nation. I tell you what, we're at the point maybe of this World Cup especially where Afghanistan aren't a smaller nation. I mean, they've dead set been that close to tipping us Aussie and getting into these quarters here. But you get a team a few down and you sort of part of your brain's thinking, oh no, someone will do this. Someone will get the big nation out. You know, it happens time and time again just because that depth is so strong. But at 91 for 7, they were genuinely, it wasn't like, oh, they'll just get out of this. They were gone. Absolutely gone.
So for Max, worried about net run rate. They were talking about net run rate, like Afghanistan, if they could have rolled them for 130 or whatever like that. Like, their net run rate would have been very close to New Zealand's, and this is a difficult cut.
For Maxi to pull that out, I mean, as I said, some of the shots it sort of went from just the most unbelievable stroke making to just absolute disrespect. I mean, when you're not moving the feet and you're just smoking it, it's almost like just, you're not good enough for me here. I'm just going to put you where I want and I can't even move.
Yeah. So it's been very quickly touted as the number one day innings of all time. I just wanted to throw up I guess some other good ones, and just to confirm that it's the best.
Yeah.
So I've got Maxwell number one. And I think the other ones sort of thrown around. You've got Viv Richards, 189 versus England, batting first. The Windies found themselves 166 for 9. Viv and the number 11 put on 106, with Viv ending up 189 not of just 170 balls to give the West Indies a total of 272. They won by 104 runs. Similar effort for Kapil Dev. Some may have this a bit higher, maybe because it's a World Cup game. Batting first against Zimbabwe, who were pretty decent at this time. They fell to 17 for 5 and then 78 for 7. He put on 70 off for the 8th wicket and then 120 off for the 9th wicket, as India made 266 for 8. Kapil Dev ended up 175 red off just 138 balls. They won by 31 runs. It was the 1983 World Cup, which they won in the end, so there's a bit in that one. These other ones here that I've sort of chucked in there. I got the Herschel Gibbs, 175 versus Australia. Obviously he didn't do all the work, but it's a big chunk of the work chasing 434 world record chase, 175 off fuck all. That's definitely got to deserve a mention. And the other one here I've got here is Rohit Sharma, 264 versus Sri Lanka. The highest score of one-day internationals, 264 of just 173 balls. They beat Sri Lanka by 153 runs. Rohit beat Sri Lanka by himself. Probably the stakes the lowest on that Rohit, but in terms of sheer numbers, that's quite something. Almost 10 years ago that innings, just quietly. So I think it's pretty clear Maxi takes that top spot.
I think stakes have to matter. They just have to matter. What makes some of these innings stick out. Like, I still remember, some of the innings as you were just going through it that stick out, like Michael Bevan's 100 against New Zealand. Just because that's a match-winning performance in a World Cup. Those sort of games, those things matter. Like, Chris Keynes' 100 in the ICC Champions Trophy final. Like, the stakes matter. Runs, obviously, you can't 260. You got to have it in the mentions, but I think this one will go down for a long time as the best.
I think because it has the stakes, it's chasing, and it has the weight of numbers, and then you add on the fact, just the fact that the physicality or the lack of physicality you have, the degree of difficulty. For me, it's whether or not it might be the best innings ever in all cricket. And I think I tried to look into it, or how you do it. You got Stokes, you got Pereira. It's too difficult to judge. Like when you go cross formats, like it becomes so much harder to actually judge. So, let's just enjoy it for what it is.
Perfect.
Okay. Righto, Lugsy. Are New Zealand the most consistent World Cup side in recent history? They've only gone and done it again. Bowling first on the same pitch, they made 401. New Zealand bowl first, potentially help against the rain later. It did not matter, as the game was all but over after a very wild first 10 overs. Kusal Pereira made 51 off just 28 rocks. Boult took 3 wickets. Southee and Ferguson took 1 each. Sri Lanka, after 10 overs, 70 for 5. Trent Boult, he became the first Kiwi and 6th all-time bowler to pass 50 World Cup wickets, just 3 wickets behind the great Wasim Akram, who actually bowled in 8 more innings for those 3 poles. Lugsy, how good is it just before the semi-finals seeing how the bowling attack back in form, in particular Trent Boult looking like himself again?
Yeah, first of all, let me just one of the great drops of our time, the old black gold, full sugar, full noise.
So you're going to touch wood for a second.
No. That's just much needed after a Black Caps win. We can't, let's face it, we don't have I don't think we have a hope of winning a semi and a final without Trent at his best. you can get through a lot of games without maybe your best players all firing, but when it comes nut cutting time, Trent Boult has to perform for us and he has to perform up top. So to see him coming into his own and again last night, was showing just starting to build slightly, I thought, the last couple of games. Sort of starting to put it all together, much needed. Lockie looked good again, bowled fast at times. And I thought Santner again. I mean, I'm not 100% sure what Sri Lanka were doing at times playing him. They looked like they didn't even want to hit him. It was, I don't know. It looked very poor from Sri Lanka. Once they lost a few, but I mean, yeah, very disappointing the way they batted there. I thought if you're gonna go down, let's try go down swinging potentially. But
that's what I like about Pereira. Pereira is just putting us under some serious heat.
Oh, look, and I mean the nerves were plenty last night, and it wasn't taking much to get them rearing up and down again. But yeah, I don't think all questions are answered with this bowling attack. I still think Ravindra's, I think he's under the pump every time he bowls, and I think India especially will try and put him under the pump. But there's enough tools there, I think, and we're just building nicely with Trent up top.
Yeah. You sort of touched on that. Yeah, Sri Lanka, they fucked around. They got a very pretty average 171 on that pitch. It was never enough. New Zealand made pretty light work of it, chasing it down in 20-odd overs. Conway, Ravindra, and Mitchell making quick 40s as our caps all but secure a semi-final berth against India. I mean, it's pretty much there, but to be clear, here are the situations where Pakistan and Afghanistan can overtake our net run rate. Afghanistan tonight need to beat South Africa by about 450 runs, or probably chase down a total in about an over. Pakistan, they've got to win by about 280 runs. That one's not impossible, but incredibly unlikely. So, we're looking at Pakistan making 400, England all out for 100. It's not impossible, but I'm picking England to probably win that game. So that's what I'm going on a limb there, just to really wind up our Pakistan followers. And I'll take the backlash. So with that, Caps is going to be through. Okay, I'm just going to say it, and if it turns to shit, I'll take it. So they are the most consistent side in World Cup recent history. They have not missed a World Cup semi for 20 years, 5 straight World Cups. Let's compare that to some of the bigger nations that dominate this.
Take your time.
Dominate this
Enjoy
cricket. Let's go with England, okay? The so-called best white ball side in the world. They've only made one semi-final since 1992. I mean, that is dreadful. When they are good, they are good. But when they are bad, they are terrible. India, they're 4 straight, not 5 straight. They're not quite as good as us. They missed out in 2007. Conveniently, the format of the World Cup changed just after that. That's must be a coincidence. I'm not too sure how that works, but that's either who nor there. Australia, the most successful World Cup nation ever. 3 straight. They were knocked down the quarters in 2011. So New Zealand currently have the longest running record for semi-finals. Okay, how do we do it? Every World Cup lock us in for a semi.
I mean, firstly, I think we talked about this going in. We'll say it again. We don't lose games we shouldn't lose, and we've seen at this World Cup where it's yet again, where teams have lost games they shouldn't. South Africa hasn't cost them, of course, but they've done it. Pakistan's done it, and that probably will cost them. You just can't, as long as you take care of the games you should take care of, and then you have a good, 1 or 2 good performances against a bigger nation, you get through. One question I will pose to you though, Matthew, is would you go 2 semis out of the last 5 and 1 win? Because I dare say a lot of us might.
I mean, yeah, that's not the point of the question, though. that's not
what you feel.
Let's not turn a positive into a negative now.
No. We're very like, if we go to the Maximum Wrestling Figure podcast, cricket podcast, sorry, we're like a very good intercontinental champion, aren't we? We're just always there or thereabouts. Not necessarily the world champ, but we're always can do it. We're very Miz-like potentially.
We're definitely a Miz. We'll put on a good show. We may not be like number one merch sellers. But I tell you what, we get the crowd going every time. We're always a draw. We put on good matches. We sell like reasonable merch. I reckon the TGC, like pigeonholed New Zealand perfectly where they are. Or was it? Oh, it was someone anyway. It might not be them, but it was, they are a 7.5, 8.5, lock them in every time. They don't dip below that. Very rarely do they go above that. So they generally always beat the lower nations, but sometimes they are susceptible to when a team goes to another level, they can struggle to keep up. But as the stakes raise in a World Cup, it's harder to reach those levels. So if you are India and you are consistently reaching those 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10 levels, you've dominated this World Cup. Again, New Zealand has limped into the World Cup. You've got all the money in the world. New Zealand's got no money. You should win. You're at home. Are you nervous?
Oh, I'd hate to be India. You'd hate to be India.
It's a lose-lose
situation. This game, can they? You couldn't lose to lowly old New Zealand after the back of 4 losses and a wee win against Sri Lanka. You couldn't possibly find yourself chasing 290 and 3 for 50, could you? Crowd not making a single sound. Kohli's gone. You wouldn't want to be in India, I don't think, in this situation.
What is the formula? Like if you pitch, say New Zealand gets through this game, and like we're not stupid. We've picked India all the way. You know, they are favourites for a reason. If I'm gonna gun to my head, I'm probably gonna pick India, but I wouldn't rule out this cap side. This is an experienced group. They know how to get the job done. If we wake up, or we'll probably watch the whole game or whatever, the scorecard, and we beat India, what does it look like?
I think it looks like New Zealand 274 for 8 on the back of get off to a yeah, well, you say that, but here's the scorecard. 274 for 8. And I think Bumfer's done a bit early and we've lost a couple, and Mitchell's steadied the ship again and we've sort of got home nicely. And there'll be a weird thing. It'll be like Sherman Gill run out, Stephen. Trent gets Kohli. They'll have a wee fight back, and you'll just see it'll be 76 for 3, 121 for 4, 170 for 5, 180 for 6. And we'll just keep taking the old wicket, and then somehow it'll be India 264 all out, 49.4 overs. Crowd can't believe it. Caps have just gone through to a final.
Lock that in. I like that. I see us winning.
What are you saying?
I see us winning in 2 different ways. I can see us winning, batting first and batting second. My initial thoughts were our biggest weakness is our bowling. And our best way of winning is just having days out with the bat. And we can, like, I don't think India's as likely as other nations to get 400 and bat you out of the game. I think they'll probably get 300, lock them in for 300, 330. And the big key with batting second, you have to get through that new ball spell. And I think we have the players to do that. We've got Conway, we've got Williamson, Ravindra's on fire. If you can get through that Bumrah, Siraj, Shami opening spell when the ball is going to move around that first 10 to 15 overs, if you can get through 1 down, 2 down and a push, I think from then on out, the Dew gets in, Mitchell gets going, we just have a real go. Like, we've got a lot of guys that could have a day out. Conway, Ravindra, Williamson, Mitchell, Phillips, Latham's Dew's got a good record again. Like, we've got guys.
Shit, yeah.
We got guys that you put a score on the board and we'll chase it. We will chase it. So I think that's the most likely way we win. But the other way is we bat first. We get 300, we get 330. I think 270 is not enough. I think 300, 330. And again, that power play is going to be key because Rohit will come hard. And if you get him early, you just never know. You just never know. We get Boult, we get Southee. That ball's going to be swinging that first 10, 15 overs. We get 2, get 3, and then we work. Sander works. So yeah, as a great manager of the WWE once says quite regularly, that is a spoiler, not a prediction.
I mean, and the thing is, like we've talked about it a bit, but that Indian crowd, man, when it goes silent, it is crazy. Like they're at full noise when Kohli smokes a 4. It's insane. Like it's just volume that won't be even touched at any other game. But when Kohli goes or Gill goes, it's also like deafeningly silent. And that's a great strength for India, but it's also that pressure will build at some point. And I mean, before all of our Indian listeners just completely turn off and anyone else is just like, these guys are absolute idiots. I mean, as Munter said I think the first thing I said at the start of this World Cup is India won't get beat. Take the $3 and, run. Get on them. But just let us dream for an episode, please.
Yeah, something. I mean, suddenly we're believing. But the thing is, like, New Zealand's got nothing to lose. They do not have anything to lose. This is the end of a golden era. They're experienced. They got nothing to prove. Like Trenty's out saying like this is the pinnacle of our sport right now. We get India at home, like he's fizzed. Yeah, if they get skittled, it's just like, oh well, it's India. That's disappointing, but that's life. But you just never know.
I've already seen a couple of the big guys putting the articles out. I'm not sure who it was, if it was Ponting. There was a few though. If you're India, you'd be nervous. This Black Cap side knows how to play these semi-finals. I'm like, yes, get behind us.
Okay. Anything else there, Lugsy?
You're officially predicting England to beat Pakistan.
Yep. I think that they've won a game. They're on a roll now. They're the champions of Europe. And I just think that Pakistan, once the lure of a semi-final berth goes, I think all the effort goes out the window. And I think England's still got enough to prove. This is like their last game as a group. And I think they turn it on for one game. Pakistan fall to bits. And I think this could be an absolute smashing.
Wow. I'll pivot and I'll go the other way. When you said that, I was actually initially with you, and now I've decided you're gonna see why England have been poor this whole World Cup. They got it together for one game, and they'll fall straight back into a bad habit. Pakistan will be too good, and they'll roll them.
Okay, a couple of teams getting rolled. That is the show for another episode. Show your support by liking and subscribing on the YouTube. Boys on a serious roll now thanks to our new Indian overlords. Going to be pretty rough when the Kiwis tip them up and 10 people turn up to the final and also view our show. But that's not our problem, nor our motivation at this point. So up the caps. Thanks to Lugsy and Jacko as always. Oh, Jacko's not here. Thanks to Lugsy and I'll catch you all next time.
Thanks, mate. Catch us.